Hello, everybody. Here we are on another inspirational conversation with me, Claire Westwood, the Chief Creative Maverick. And today I have a wonderful guest for you, Joe Hoare, who is a laughter coach, a laughter specialist, and he works in the same, lives and works part of the time, I think now, Joe, in the same city as me, which is Bristol. But we originally met, and I was trying to work it out. I think it was about 16 years ago in
Yep.
Cheltenham, where I used to live. And Joe did a laughter session at a Mind, Body and Spirit festival, which I went to, and it was a magnificent experience. And we've kind of stayed in touch ever since then. And in 2020, I think it was, just after lockdown, when we were allowed out, Joe sent me a message saying, do you want to take part in a laughter recording that's going to be at a science centre in Bristol? So me loving being on camera went, of course I do, I'd love to. So me and my friend turned up and we had this recording that went into an exhibition at the Science Centre. And coincidentally or not, depending what the universe had in mind, I ended up getting a job at the very same Science Centre that this video is playing at. So there's been a lot of synchronicities and serendipities along the way. So thanks for joining me this morning, Joe. It is lovely to see your face this morning.
Well, it's great to be here, and thank you very much for asking me, Claire. And yes, I remember. I remember that. Yeah. But it is all part of a project that that is We the Curious.
Indeed,
The Science Centre
absolutely.
had about I think they had a project of what makes people happy or something like that.
Yeah, there was a corner about happiness, and it's got colour and it's got laughter and it's got various other things in it. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, and we had a great time, didn't we?
We had a marvelous time, and I got paid a few quid for it as well. So not only did we have a lovely time laughing all morning and me being a bit of a star, but we also got a few quid to take home. So
Yep.
it was a win-win all round, I think, Joe.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So in these discussions, what I'm really interested in is how people go from maybe perhaps having an ordinary job, corporate job, to doing something purposeful, unusual, and out of the ordinary. So I sometimes start with people's childhood. So if you can remember that far back, Joe, like what was life like as a child? Were you always drawn to happiness and joy? Oh my goodness, there we go. So for
That's
people
me.
for
That's
people
me.
listening on the podcast, Joe is holding up a black and white photo of his
Yes.
family with a very
Yes.
tiny Joe. Are you on Mum's lap
Yes.
there? Oh my
Yes.
God,
That's
that's so
right.
cute.
Um, 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 uh, of course, I don't remember that kind of thing at all. I don't. I'm not quite sure what my sort of first childhood memory is. But yeah, uh, but but it's obviously happened. And kind
You
of sort of
obviously were a child. There's photographic
yes,
evidence.
exactly, yes, exactly, yep. Um, um, uh, um, and I think you see, on the whole, I think I remember enjoying my childhood.
Yeah.
Um, I think really, no, I was a I was a fairly happy child. There were no disasters, um, um, uh, other than the ones I created. Ha ha ha
Of
ha ha ha.
course.
But no, I was never, I was never kind of sort of life-threateningly ill. There's no sort of sense of sort of personal risk or danger or unsafety. I sort of think I remember my childhood being, just really a very sort of nice and pleasant experience.
Fantastic. And so
Yes.
so skipping forward, let's talk about what about school or education, or sort of what were you drawn to, and then sort of what was your early career path if you had one?
Well, um, one of the happens was I was expelled from school,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Um, when I was about 15, and
That's a first
and
on these interviews, by the way.
and um um I remember my father was driving me to what in those days was called a vocational guidance counselor, right?
Okay.
Okay. And he asked me as we were sort of driving if I had any idea of what I thought I wanted my career to be,
Yeah.
um, and kind of unbidden, the words that sort of popped out of my mouth were, "Well, I think I want to help people." And he
Beautiful.
said, "Oh, what do you mean you want to be a psychiatrist?" And I said, "That's not quite like that. I don't quite know." Um, but that was the kind of the first inkling that I had of of what I felt my life might be about. And it wasn't the kind. I don't remember having particularly thought about that
Mm,
before.
yeah.
Um, but it's just when so when that question came, those are the words that came out of my mouth. So something was um, in retrospect, it was like something was identifying itself to me, right?
Yes. So a part
So
of you knew that, even though you'd never really consciously been aware of it before.
well, that's right. That's exactly how it felt,
Yeah.
and of course that then 15. So I was in my mid-teens, and of course when you're in your teens, you've got a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah.
So that kind of memory, or that kind of that impulse or that vibe, um, it got sort of submerged, having sort of surfaced. It then sort of submerged again while those sort of the rest of age years and all that happened. But looking back at it, I remember that very clearly because it was something, it was something identifying itself to me about the path my life was likely to take.
Yeah.
Um, um, and the vocational guidance counselor, I remember thinking was actually he's pretty hopeless.
Yeah.
I felt he just sort of said things that he reckoned my father would want to hear, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
go into a career and do responsible things and all that, and um, which wasn't really how I felt at all. I was a teenager. Ha ha.
Yeah.
I really didn't know. I was just kind of sort of really just sort of just living life as a teenager at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
But looking back at it, I remember that as being that being a real sort of watershed kind of some moment
Yeah.
in my own journey. You see.
Yeah, so you had almost, one might say, some kind of calling or inner guidance. Go, I want to make a difference and help people. And then you've got somebody who's a professional person giving you, here's what you could be doing. And part of you is probably going, yeah, no, you're all right. Like,
Well, yeah, exactly. Yes.
no,
Yep.
thanks, mate.
And I don't think I see. After having said that, I felt that I probably wanted to help people. I don't remember giving it any particular sort of thought or credence or any particular sort of weight or anything
Yeah.
afterwards. It just kind of emerged, it surfaced, the words were said, and the vibe and then a kind of
Yeah.
life carried on.
Yeah.
And it really was sort of very submerged for quite a long time
Yeah.
after that.
So,
Um,
so how did life carry on? Like, what did you decide to do as a teenager once you'd been removed from the school system?
well, yes. Well, somehow miraculously, I into a different sort of school and school environment where um, um, uh, my energies went into kind of enjoying being at school and enjoying. Well, I always did enjoy being at school, but I kind of earlier on I enjoyed it in what the school considered the wrong way.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. But then I started enjoying school in the way the school considered the right way. So I know um, um, I went to a sort of co-ed school first of all when I was sort of 16, and that was nice.
Yeah.
That was that itself was a real Oh, it's such a refreshing change. And then I had some sort of really one or two really nice teachers that I really got on well
Yeah.
with, the very nice sort of relationship, and I enjoyed the studying. I enjoyed the subjects that I did. I enjoyed the whole sort of social environment there. Um, uh, and it was great. It was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, so
Um,
you felt like you fitted better there, and therefore, your love of learning, or your education could be nurtured by the environment, the surroundings, the people, that maybe it
yes.
wasn't before.
Um, I think that no uh, that second school, it was Millfield. It definitely did nurture me. It definitely did support me, and somehow, and
Yeah.
as much as anything, there were just one or two particular teachers who I really got on with, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and there and that kind of relationship just sort of, in many ways, it no, it brought the best out in me,
Yeah.
and it was really nice. I really enjoyed the studying. I really enjoyed all the school learning.
Yeah.
Um, um, uh, and then then you see, then I had a year break between school and university.
Okay.
Um, um, uh, and that was pretty amazing because I did things like um, um, I went to Mexico.
Right. Yep.
Um, and traveled around. There's a ticket called the 2245. You could go, you bought it, and you had to be there at least 22 days and not more than 45. And I traveled all the way around Mexico, flew into Mexico City, then went down to sort of Oaxaca, and then all the way down around into the Yucatan, visiting all the old sites, the sacred sites there.
Okay.
So
Amazing.
Teotihuacan and Palenque and Tikal and all these sorts of places.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
And
uh,
may I be cheeky and ask what year this might have been, roughly?
um, Probably about 1971, something
Okay.
like that.
Yeah.
Um, um,
Did you have
and
long hair?
well, I did. A, I had lots of hair, and B, it was long. Yes, yep.
Perfect.
um, and it was fabulous. I travelled around on local buses. I
Yeah.
spurned the tourist buses. I would
Yeah.
travel around on the local buses. I was stopping at every village and ever along the way, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Um, um, and Yes, going to these places and seeing these. I haven't been back to my. I've been back to one or two of these places that since. Um, uh, um, it is still definitely looking back now. It is still definitely so quite primitive
Mm. Yeah.
visiting some of these places, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
Right? Because there was that vibe slightly of being something of an explorer. Nowadays,
Mm.
it's kind of it's a tourist sort of package experience, and there's a whole, you have the visiting the pyramids experience. But back then, it was kind of, I went there, and no, I had sort of found my own accommodation, sort of found my own bus. It didn't really speak Spanish, so
Mm.
it was great, but it was really great. And then after that, um, um, I had I forget how long, but probably a month or 6 weeks on a kibbutz in Israel,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
because back then that was very much one of the things that students did.
It was,
Um,
absolutely.
um, did you ever do anything like that, by the
I
way?
didn't. No. I left school and and had 6 months working in a supermarket, and then went to be nurse. So I was like on the path of kind of knowing what I wanted to do right from early on. But yes,
Yes,
I mean, I know that it was talked about quite a lot. Yeah, in the 70s and 80s, it was. I did
yes,
have one of my nursing student friends who went over and did it in the 80s. Um,
yes.
I think as
Well,
part of her kind of part of her Jewish heritage, she was sort of getting back into part of those communities and stuff. But yes, no, I didn't ever do that.
You know what? I think probably by the time your friend went, it had already sort of changed quite a bit. It was evolving quite a lot when I was there, because you had the regular sort of kibbutzniks, well, and that it was very much about sort of sort of community living. And I was on a farm, and we picked oranges and grapefruits
Yeah,
and lemons. Um, and you had the regular kibbutzniks, and then you had the international volunteers, which was amazing.
yeah, I'm sure.
There were one or two people who were sort of Vietnam veterans,
Okay, yeah,
Americans, incredibly traumatized by their experience there.
yeah.
There was an Irish sort of nationalist firebrand, um, and he and I got on incredibly well. um, there were one or two Arab American women there, right? Um, it was a really cosmopolitan group, um,
Mm,
and it was down by Gaza, and you could see you could sort of see Gaza in the distance, um, uh, uh, and um, um, that was great. And I went to the Dead Sea. I went to the Dead Sea. I went because after my time in, I then sort of hitchhiked and so went to the Dead Sea. Um, and I remember sort of there are two things I remember. One was sort of floating on the Dead Sea, because I
yeah.
don't know if you've been, no, you don't go in, no, you get on the water, you don't get in the water, and you just kind of float on the surface. Um, and then again, because it was also quite sort of primitive and it was much less developed than it is sort of now. I remember sort of walking up into the hills up above. And that was the first place I ever did naked sunbathing.
I mean, what an experience.
Well, yes, it's funny, isn't it? How certain things just stand out in your memory when you start looking back. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
um,
I certainly remember my first skinny dipping experience, but
yep,
I was a bit nervous about naked sunbathing because of my delicate bits getting burnt. And then actually we were we were a family, went with my family. We lived in Bournemouth, and then there's a nudist beach in Studland. So we had a
yes,
tiny little cruiser boat. So we took it out and moored, threw the anchor down and came off at Studland. And my mum decided, oh, right, you know, and as four
yes,
teenagers, the kids, we were mortified because my
yes, of
mum was
course.
like naked
Ah,
on the sand. So I went in the sea. Me and my brother like took our things off in the sea and swam around in the sea, feeling that
yeah.
beautiful feeling of freedom in the sea, and then put it back on again. And then, but we kind of had the last laugh because my mum really burnt her boobs. So
Oh, yeah. Yes,
I was
yes,
like,
yes.
anyway, that's yeah, totally. It's funny how these stories like preempt other stories, but yeah,
Well,
anyway.
yes. Ha, ha.
Um, but yeah,
So that was
and
a
I think this is what, kind of, even though gap years now are very different, compared to being at school, for example, they're a totally different experience. And I did a bit of traveling, when I was in my 30s. So I was a nurse for quite a while, and then I was like, I need to find out what else there is in life. So I did it in my 30s, but I traveled around Australia and also New Zealand with a kind of company that we stayed in hostels, so it was cheaper, and we had a driver, so kind of the route was planned for us, but we were kind of roughing it a little bit. But again, a
yeah.
bit like your experience, there was people from various different countries that
Yes,
could join the experience, so we were meeting different people
yes.
on the coach, and when we got off we were talking to different people. And I just remember thinking, like, I didn't know there was such a community of people all traveling around all the time. And now, it would all be online, but this is sort of 25 years ago,
Yes,
where
yes, yes.
there were little newspapers for, if you want to get a lift from here to here, I'm driving a car, or for flat shares, or for
Yeah.
people who were kind of uh, part partly traveling, partly half living there, to find each other and communicate with each other. And this was mind blowing to me. And I was like, oh, I never imagined that this kind of all this communication and community was available for people who were popping in and out of these different countries. It was amazing.
Yes, yes. I know. It's so good to have done these things, isn't it? You know,
Totally.
um,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, I remember, I went the first time, it was a 3 week trip in Australia, and to get 3 weeks off in a row as a nurse is almost impossible. But somebody had booked a holiday and they couldn't go. And when I looked in the holiday book, there was 3 weeks in a row free. And I was like, what? Like, we all had to book our holidays, so the ward was always staffed, And I was like, right, I'm
yes,
putting my name down. I don't know what I'm doing. And then I was starting to feel a bit of burnout, and I was just like, right, where would I like to go? And these were the days, like, not as primitive as when you went, but a brochure, and I phoned up and booked it over the phone, and I didn't
yes,
really know where I
yes.
was going. I just had some pictures, and I was like, I'm just getting on a plane, and I'll find out when I get there, because there's no videos to watch, or no,
No,
you
exactly,
couldn't
exactly.
experience it before you went. You just had to go, I've booked it, I'm getting on a plane, I'll get off in Sydney, and then I'll get on the coach, kind of. Yeah,
Yes,
so yeah.
and that's how it was. That's just how it was. And we survived.
Totally. Yeah, yeah.
um, um, um,
But
uh,
anyway,
um,
brilliant. Okay, so what about kind of, career purposeful things sort of after uni? Did you get caught up
well,
in ordinary world then, like the
well,
corporate thing, or
uni was a pivotal moment in my life um, um, because um, um, I I I was only at uni for 2 years, not three.
okay,
Um, 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 because I was a slightly um, indulgent student, and my focus was not on studying. Um, uh, um, and so I didn't manage to make it to my exams, right? Um, so I ended up sort of leaving early, and I was in it at that time. That was a real that um, the first part of life having been absolutely sort of fantastic. Then uni had a real downward dip, um,
okay.
and I sort of came out of it, um, confused and unhappy and upset and sort of not knowing anything and kind of wanting to run away from life, which I kind of sort of did for a while. Um, and I convinced myself that I had no purpose in life, that I'd blown it, and that
Mm,
really the only thing that made sense was to end my life. Um,
okay.
uh, and so I was in that space in that kind of that mindset for about, oh, I don't know, sort of 6 or 9 months,
Mm,
um, and I had one of my either my biggest failures or probably my biggest successes. Because I succeeded in failing 3 times to take my own life, right?
well,
Um,
that's a relief for all of us today, Joe.
um, um, and, having reached that point, um, it was just, being. I found being in the mindset where I convinced myself that everything was black and there's no point in carrying on. It was actually quite an exhausting story to carry,
Mm,
right? Um,
yep.
after my sort of third attempt, um, uh, I thought, well, I just give up. Ha
Yeah, I
ha!
can't. Yeah.
I can't sort of carry on with this, and so I ended up sort of going back home. Um,
Okay. And were you
um,
were you getting any kind of profession? Was there professional support around then? Did you access any help and support, or were you
I,
kind of
I,
trying
I,
to deal with this on your own?
I don't even remember. It was probably offered to me, but um, um, uh, I just needed time and space. I had the
Yeah.
support of my parents, you know, and out in the countryside, and I could just kind of just be there and just go through my own kind of sort of just just sort of letting all that kind of all that the blackness, if you like, just gently sort of dispel, and I could go out and be outside quite a lot. And as a young dog, my parents had a puppy, and I used to do a lot of it. And I was out in nature a lot as well.
Mm.
Um, and somehow that combination of being at home, feeling so loved and supported, not being pressured, not being asked
Yeah.
to talk about it or explain it, just being
Yeah.
allowed sort of to be myself, kind of, again, looking back, that then allowed the kind of natural sort of self-healing potential that I feel that we all have,
Mm.
right? It then just allowed it to naturally, in its own time and space, it just naturally sort of came back to the surface
Yeah.
again. Um,
Yeah. And there's
um,
something specific about, we'd probably call that, depression now. You would have a label of it, or with the suicidal ideation kind of pieces in it. But it's it's so common as part of the human journey to feel like that at times. But I think there's part of that, I've been through it a few times, and there's part of that journey where you feel like you're the only person that's ever felt this bad. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's a really
yes,
isolating way to feel. Whereas the reality, I think the stats are like 1 in 3 adults has a bout of a depression at least once in their life, kind of quite
yes,
seriously. And I know for me, the first time I had it, I was determined. I was a nurse, and I was like, I can sort myself out. It's like I'm fine. I can sort myself out. And something that happened was, I went to live with my brother and his family. I was in my mid-30s. My dad had died the year before, and I just blanked the whole thing out. And then my system collapsed about a year later. I was doing lots of different things, and my body and brain wouldn't sustain it. And eventually, I kind of just was like, I really need help here. And all my family were like, thank God. You know what I mean? Like, we know you
yeah,
do, but they had to wait till I was ready to go and,
of
be in
course,
a cocoon and
always,
just
yeah.
build things up really slowly. So yeah, for anyone watching or listening this, if you've been through anything like this, or you feel a bit like this now, like it's it's often a part of the human journey. But
Yeah.
especially in this modern world, there's lots of places you can go to get help and support, and feel a bit better about yourself. But yeah, it's a process. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, the thing
Paul?
is, when we're ready, we are ready. When we are ready, we're unstoppable. And
Yeah,
until we are ready, we are unstartable, because we have to go through our own process. Um,
yeah,
and and it can't be rushed either, can it?
absolutely. No.
It
and
takes
and
however long it takes.
yeah, and I've had depression maybe 3 times quite badly in my life, and it can come on quite fast, and it's generally taken a year to be relatively normal. Yeah, normal,
Yeah, yeah,
human at the end of it, and able to interact with the world and feeling like I have some personality again, or what have
yeah.
you. But yeah, it's an interesting journey for sure. Yeah,
So when I look back at my time then, because that was in my early 20s, and of course at that stage in life, um, we still know things.
yeah,
Life is that's we know that life is either black or white.
mm,
But we have that kind of that kind of certainty about,
mm,
because that's the phase of life when we do have that kind of certainty. So and nowadays, if I sort of look back, the kind of thing I would say to um, my younger self there is, well, just keep breathing, just take another breath.
yeah,
Just take another breath. It- it's as simple as that. Just hang in there, right? Um,
mm,
just one breath. Just take one more breath. Tiny steps, tiny steps. Um, with no pressure, no expectation, but just one more breath. Um, uh, and I think that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing I might possibly have related to sort of back then. But
mm.
going and talking to someone, or seeing someone, or having this guy, no, absolutely not. But just hanging in there, taking one more breath. That's that I And that I think is the kind of advice that would have resonated to some extent with me sort of back then. Um,
Mm, yeah.
but now you see, now I look back at that time and I say, so thank you. I
Mm,
say thank you. Um, uh, because because the thing about hitting rock bottom, when you hit rock bottom, um, if you can then bounce, right?
yeah.
And when you've hit rock bottom, you know what rock bottom is like.
Oh, for sure.
Um,
Yeah.
and actually, that's and when you turn it round and when you find the thank you in that experience, it's a very actually life enhancing and life informing experience, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
you know what it's like. You know what it's like having been down there.
Yeah,
Um,
and you know, there was pivotal moments in my depression journeys where I had a moment of I can either keep going down or I can make a tiny choice now to just start coming out of it for different reasons. And you know, certainly, yeah, certainly reaching rock bottom in my addiction. And when I was first in recovery, like I'd lost everything, you know, my career, my job, my
yeah,
house, my everything. And I was sort of not quite homeless because somebody was still putting a roof over my head, but you know, they were running out of patience kind of thing. But my, you know, my gratitude was so easy. It was like, oh my God, I'm still here and I'm sober today. And that was like the starting point of everything else is just gravy or whatever they say, you know, everything
yeah,
else is a bonus right now, because if I'm
yeah,
still here and I can stay sober for a day or a few hours or whatever, you know, I felt I could manage on that day, like that's literally was, I'm so grateful that this is, I'm not grateful for that, because if I looked at everything else, like the rest of my life was a total, you know, car crash type thing. I had nothing in material terms or success indicators of life. Do you know what I mean? But I was like, but actually all that matters now is that I'm still here and I'm sober and I've got food in the fridge. And you know, it was so simple. You know, I was down to kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like right at the bottom. But I
yeah,
was so grateful for that tiny little scrap
yeah,
of I'm
yeah,
still here. You know, I'm still breathing. I haven't had a drink today. I've got some food in the fridge. People still love me. And
yeah.
that was enough to build, you know, a whole new life on. But again, it took time and it was incremental
It
steps
does.
to get there.
Yes, but see, I see all these things that happen. Uh, a couple of other some major crises. Uh, I see the purpose of of these crises is not to is well really the potential in these crises is to destroy the ego.
Mm,
Right, right, and to let something to let our being, right,
yeah,
our being emerge in the
yes,
sense of right, as Teilhard de Chardin said, no, we're not a human being having a spiritual experience. We're a spiritual being having a human experience.
yeah,
And sometimes we have all this, all the kind of the nonsense and everything that everything so we create in our egoic self. The story of who I think I am, the story of my, and all this kind of stuff, right?
yeah,
Um, um, uh, and sometimes it takes, sometimes it melts away, you know, quite nicely sort of on its own, and sometimes it takes a crisis to kind of to
absolutely.
shatter it,
Yeah,
and allow sort of something else to start coming through. And so,
yeah,
um, um, uh, so the potential that I you know, looking back, I find that the potential in a crisis is of course for us to really, well, to use it, it's to evolve, is to allow allow a deeper side of ourselves, that the spiritual being having the human experience, allow that sort of space to breathe and grow and expand. Um,
yes, for
um,
sure. And I think
um,
for me, my first couple of episodes were when I learned that I wasn't here necessarily to save the world and look after everyone else to the detriment of myself. I could receive nurturing myself, and that was a massive thing for my, my identity. It's like,
There
oh,
we go.
I have to be looked after right now because I've got nothing to offer the world. And certainly with my depression, burnout, and addiction journey, that was when my spiritual awakening happened. When that was the first time I truly surrendered to something greater, because I was like, I'm doing a really terrible job of doing this myself. I was a
Yes.
nurse, I was professional, I knew about mental health, I was a coach, I was NLP trained. Surely I can sort my own brain out. This determination, this individuality that we're programmed with sometimes. And it was like, nah, Claire, no. I literally the next path is the gutter, basically, and or not being here anymore. So it was sort of, and I just remember just going, yeah, I'm doing a terrible job. I'm going to have to ask for help from professional people, but also something greater. And initially finding that so difficult, and then being so relieved that I wasn't in charge of everything anymore. And that was like, oh my God,
Yes.
I'm not in charge of anything anymore. Like, oh, what a relief to hand it all over to humans who could give me advice and nurturing and care and tell me how to get sober and stay sober, and also something greater. And I remember somebody in recovery group telling me, it's like, we have an infinite power at our disposal. Why would we not use it? And I was like,
There we go. There we
oh,
go.
what?
Yes. Yes.
Right? Yeah, amazing.
But we have to be ready. We have to be ready to hear
Totally,
and receive that kind
totally.
of message or that kind of
Yeah,
information,
my life
don't
had to be
we?
so terrible that I was like,
Yes.
okay, like it's
Yes.
been falling apart for 2 years. My family had to just watch it while suggesting I might want to go and get proper help. Yeah, I had to be, like you say, at that point of rock bottom where I'm like, now I'm ready to surrender my ego. I'm ready to surrender control. I'm ready to open up to, human and divine intervention,
Yes.
and see what happens, because to be honest, my life can't get any worse from here. So
Yes.
I was prepared to do that. Yeah. So how about you? Like,
Yes.
did you kind of find that your spiritual self was cracked open, or what was your experience sort of after that dark episode?
My spirituality kept giving me nudges,
Yeah.
right? Um, um, and my and um, and after a bout of insomnia, which is about sort of 10 or 12, 15 years after um, um, uh, uh, after I succeeded in failing,
Yeah.
I had to take my own life. um, uh, I then had a bout of insomnia. When I sort of came through that, I realized that I had no sort of personal survival, personal development skills. I had no. I've been so well educated, sort of quite competent at my job, respected by my peers. But I had no my own sort of personal survival skills were nil.
Okay.
And I realized that that was what I needed to address.
Yeah.
Uh, and so um, what actually happened was I had a healing wake up.
Okay.
I was in a healing circle, and and the group started sort of sending healing to a person who's quite emotionally stuck and not really in touch with his feelings, not able to express his feelings, and that was also me. Ha 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 ha, and something just went bang like that. And
Yeah.
it was looking at it now, it was another real identity egoic shattering, right?
Mm.
And I suddenly felt I felt and I experienced the reality of kind of connection and compassion and the kind of the universality
Right.
of the human experience.
Yeah.
And that was another pivotal moment. That was a real sort of before and after experience, and that is
Mm.
when that first nudge or indications that I had when I was 15, where the little
Mm,
things that I want to help people, right?
mm,
That's when it finally emerged, right?
mm.
Um, because I then knew that life was actually it's all about connection and compassion, and kindness, and this openness, and this embracing.
Yeah.
Um,
So how old were you at this point then when you had this second?
about 40.
Okay. So 15 to
Um,
40. Okay. And what I'm thinking now as well as we're talking, it's so interesting that, in life we're often, when we're looking at pivotal moments or successful pivotal moments, maybe peak experiences, whatever, we might be up a pyramid in Mexico, or we might be in a healing circle and suddenly have some
yeah,
kind of, you know emotional, divine, energetic experience. So sometimes these important things, I'm often talking to clients and friends and stuff about this. It's like, they're tiny little things sometimes in the grand scheme of life, but they're enormous. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like a little inkling, or a bit of guidance, or we have a conversation with somebody, and in a grand scheme of an adult life, it's nothing. You might go, oh, it was my wedding day, or it was this, and you go, actually, it was this tiny little thing that happened to me once when I had a conversation with my dad in the car. Do you know what I mean? And something
yeah.
popped out that I wasn't expecting, and so I think it's just to remind everybody, watching and listening, that when we're tuned in more to ourselves, and this is what I'm teaching my clients, is like, when we're tuned in more to ourselves, we're more tuned into these little messages, because some of them are so tiny and so quiet, we might miss them. But they don't
Yes.
necessarily come with a great big fanfare, you know.
No. They might or might not. I mean, it's not to say that this is the way it has to be, but this is how it
Totally.
was.
Yeah.
No, I'm in the camp where there's a definite sort of before and after. There's a moment, one specific moment, and in that microsecond, you know, my life changed,
Yeah.
um, and people noticed it straight away. A
Yeah.
friend of mine, a couple of days later, I was sort of walking along the street, and he was on the other side of the street. And when we chatted afterwards, he said it was like looking at someone who'd just woken up, and that's exactly what it was. It was a waking up
Yeah.
experience. Um,
Amazing.
um, um, uh,
Yeah.
uh,
And
uh,
I'm
um,
remembering something that happened to me when I was nursing, and that was probably 30 years ago. And I was a ward sister then on a children's ward, and I remember walking up and down. It was kind of the ward had been built in the war, but we were still in it, in the
yeah,
late 1990s.
yeah.
With a corridor, lots of cubicles, because children need to be in cubicles, walking up the ward. And then this voice told me, there's more for you than this, Claire. And I was like,
There
oh,
we go. Yeah,
nothing more, like no information, no
yeah.
guidance, no here's what no lightning bolt, but just like, there's more for you than this. It's like, you want to give me a clue? Nothing. But it was
Yes,
it
yeah,
was just these tiny little things. Oh, okay. But just kind of expanded my mind to go, oh, maybe I'm not going to be a nurse until I retire then, which I'd already
yes.
started thinking. I'm not sure if I want to do 30 more years of this, but yes, just these little voices that can kind of open up a bit of curiosity, perhaps.
Well, the thing is, we have to figure it all out ourselves, don't we?
Yeah.
We get these nudges, or we get these moments, or something can happen, but it just indicates to us in some way or other that there is something we need to do next, and it's going to be different from what we have been doing.
Yeah.
But what it is and how we go about it, this is what we have to figure out, isn't it? And
Yeah.
this is the human journey, isn't it?
It is. And I always talk to my clients about, when we go clothes shopping, and maybe we try things on, see how they fit. So, it might look great on the hanger, and it might look terrible on our body, or not,
That's a very nice
not look
analogy.
right, or not
Yes,
feel right, or whatever. So it's like, it's trying things and then go, oh, this feels really good, I want to do more of this, or I thought I'd really like doing this, but I actually don't that much. Or picking the pieces that work, and almost, yeah, I just think the path unfolds as we walk it. And I was thinking this
yes,
before this conversation today, actually, when I trained as a coach, and it was like, we set a goal and we move towards it. And all these conversations, people are going, it just happened, or this happened, or something pulled me here. And it was never I set this goal and like took all the steps and went and bingo,
No.
got there. We might have had that in our careers, you know, a more kind of logical step-by-step process, but kind of discovering who we are and what we love to do, and our own kind of unique way of making a difference in the world, if that's what we're looking to do, is an unfolding process. And this is why everybody ends up doing something slightly different, because it's ideally something that really suits who we are and kind of feels right. So we've been talking for ages already, Joe. Let's talk about laughter, how you got involved in that, and kind of what you love about doing it, or what a difference it's made for you and the people that you work with, as well, all around the world, because you do things online as well now. So
Well, I am very aware that the arrival of laughter practices and intentional laughter and laughter yoga in my life, it really only happened as part of this, like this process, as part of this sort of evolution.
yeah.
Because after my waking up, the first thing I went into was healing. I trained with the National Federation of Spiritual Healers, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And actually that underpins everything else that I do. So for me, the laughter and the laughter yoga and all this, for me, it's the healing power of laughter
Right.
yoga.
Yeah.
It's not about the ha ha ha. It's kind of about how the ha ha ha, when you let it in, it can start initiating big changes in our life. So I did that first of all, and then I did sort of free your natural voice, which again had been a really big thing for me, being comfortable with kind of being heard, right?
Yes.
And you using my voice, using our voice to its fullest in a free way. Well, you see, um, uh, as part of the healing, there was breathing meditation. And then, of course, voice is all on the breath. I then did a lot of sort of a qigong, which is kind of very grounding, or the style of qigong I did was very grounding. Right,
Yeah.
so I got that element, and then along came the laughter and the laughter yoga, and a laugh, you see, actually it's a sound on the breath. It's all on the breath. It's all on the breath, and so the breath and the voice and the laughter, right? It's for me. It's been a very natural progression,
Mm.
because laughter practices, when you do them not as an exercise, but as an inner journey,
Mm.
right? You know, it's not just doing the ha ha ha, but it's feeling it and
Mm.
allowing the vibe to come this way as well as that way. So
Mm.
there's the yang and there's the yin, there's the outer and there's the inner. And it's that outer and inner, that combo that that can be very expansive and very helpful for people. I find it allows lots of people to kind of to help move more of the detritus, the more no, to help shed more of the story,
Mm.
to help melt more of our ego and more of our identity, and allow our being. Um,
Mm.
um, uh, it can feed our being, you see. Um,
Mm.
and for those who are on any kind of inner journey, then practices, or the practices that feed our inner being are worth considering.
Mm.
And laughter practices um, are one set of practices that work incredibly well if you're the kind of person who is ready for and open to
Mm.
them.
Mm.
Ha ha
Yeah.
ha.
So yeah. So there's a couple of things coming to mind. One is which, you know, that quite a lot of us that are brought up to be fairly academic in our focus love the theory of stuff, but it's really about the experience of all these things. Like you're saying, you know, the different modalities sort of built on each other. And then the laughter was a natural sort of progression from the other things.
Yes.
But the other thing that's coming to mind as well is you can heal things without having to know what they are or talk about them by using
Absolutely.
physical processes. We don't need to go into
Absolutely.
analysis of our stuff or going back to the trauma. It can shift stuff out of us without us even really knowing what it is or having to explain it to anybody.
Yeah, well, that's a really when we get that, that's a really helpful shift, a really helpful mindset, because it means all we need to do is to practice being present.
Yep.
And the thing in laughter yoga, it's about it's being present, and in laughter yoga for joy. And I'm just reaching for my books.
Yep. So Joe
Um,
is now holding his books up. For
yes,
those of
yes.
you just listening in, Awaken the Laughing Buddha Within.
Awakening the laughing Buddha within, which is a whole set of. It's about it's about consciously, actively sort of feeding our inner journey, feeding our giving energy to the beautiful radiant being that we all are, right? Um,
Yeah.
and the more we energize that, the more then that expands and grows, and and becomes part of who we are, and then sort of radiates out and connects and interacts with everyone and everything around us. Um, and then laughter yoga for joy is how we can actually sort of start using that more intentionally and more consciously, because there's a difference, you see, between being here now,
Mm.
right, and being here now joyfully.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and for me, the laughter yoga journey is all about it's all about laughter yoga for joy, right? It's about being here now joyfully, so that we don't just sort of do the work, but
Mm.
we enjoy doing the things that we have to do. So we don't just do our breathing meditation, but we enjoy the breathing. We don't just do our somatic, our movement, or some qigong or tai chi or yoga, whatever, but we enjoy doing it, because otherwise we'll look back at our life and think, yes, I did this and the other, but how much did I enjoy it?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And so often, one of the regrets that people express when they look at, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much I actually enjoyed my life.
Mm.
You see, and laughter yoga for me, and laughter yoga for joy, is all about making sure we enjoy our evolution. We enjoy our process of feeding our spirituality, of giving our being, this sort of radiant being, a space to grow and expand and connect and give and receive, and all that.
Yeah.
Blah
Totally.
blah blah.
So I'll put the links for the books in the notes. So if anybody's curious about checking them out, have a look at the description of this episode, and the links will be in there. And yeah, it kind of, what you just said reminds me of, a lot of kind of spiritual awakening stuff now is very worthy, and it's more about deprivation or more stuff to tick off our list or things we should be doing, and it comes very much from that. But yeah, the act of doing things we enjoy, because joy is expansion. It is us tuning into
There we
our higher
go.
self anyway. And
It
it's,
is.
I have discussions with a friend of mine. We're like, can we just do things that we enjoy? Like, is that allowed? Like, we're still undoing the programming now. And we're like, and we have to remember that joy is like one of our highest expressions and our highest frequency, however you want to describe it.
Exactly.
So in
Yes.
the last couple of minutes, shall we do some then? Do you want to do a bit of laughter for the people listening and watching? Let's do a really simple 2-minute thing. If you can do one, that would be really fun.
But in laughter yoga for joy, yeah, as I was saying before, it combines all the different strands of everything that I've done previously. So it includes the breathing in, pausing for a second, smiling, and breathing out. And that, so that guy combines the breath and the voice, because it combines the qigong and tai chi, and it combines the laughing Buddha vibe, the inner smile vibe, and
Mm.
it's simply just to breathe in, raise your arms, pause for a second, and then and it's often good to do these things 3 times, right? So the third one, just breathe in, pause for a second, smile, and then and the laughter is because we're alive. It's laughing. We're not looking because it's not a joke or funny or humor. It's because we're alive. We're alive, and isn't that wonderful?
It certainly is. It certainly is. That's great. So that's something really simple. Breathe in, lift your arms, hold your breath, and then laugh on the way out. And do that 3 times. And
Three
I mean,
times, three times. Yep.
interested to know from people. Leave a comment if you've tried it and how you feel. And it's reminding me of when I did laughter skills training with Joe a few years ago. And there's a
Yes.
lot of research in that about how it impacts your immune system and your
Yeah.
healing,
Yeah.
the science of it. But what I found really interesting was it something about if you put a pencil in your mouth and like a smile around it, it stimulates the same hormones as if we were genuinely smiling. So even if we do these laughter exercises, our brain is fooled into more positive ways of the energy flows more positively, our brains are rewired. Whether we feel
Yes.
happy or not, doing these things like faking a smile can actually make you feel happier,
Yes.
and then you
Yes.
feel happier, and
Yes.
then it feels genuine. So if you're in a laughter session, like I came to one a few months ago with you in person, and the ridiculousness of everybody laughing just because they're in this session, and laughter is kind of catching as well, like yawns. So it ends
Yes.
up that a lot of it is genuine laughter because the whole thing is so
Yes.
ridiculous, really.
See, I just wanted, when we do something intentionally, it's not fake because we're doing it intentionally. And so an
Okay, yeah,
intentional laugh or an intentional smile, you know, it's genuine because we are doing it with a genuine intention. We
I
are
see. Yeah,
smiling with the intention of smiling, and we are laughing. We're going ha with the intention of, and although we might not be smiling because we're feeling great, or we might not be laughing because something's funny, we are laughing because we are intentionally connecting with that smiling or laughing vibe. And I'm going to hold up. I'm going to hold up. I've got a whole collection of these laughing Buddhas, right? It's the laughing Buddha vibe, where that's what we connect with when we do an intentional smile and an intentional laugh. So it's never fake because we are intentionally connecting with that vibe.
beautiful. That's a really great clarification, actually. Yeah, so we don't have to wait to feel happy before we
No.
let ourselves smile. We can intentionally smile, and that will yeah, that's kind of the purpose is the smile.
Yeah, with the intention of connecting with that happy vibe or that joyful
Yeah,
vibe.
yeah.
Uh, um,
So the connection comes from the smile rather than waiting for the emotion to prompt the smile.
Yes, yes,
Beautiful.
that's right. Because we set our intention. It's that Viktor Franklness. Our ability to choose how to respond to any given set of circumstances. Here are my circumstances. I choose to improve my experience of being alive right now. How can I do that? Well, maybe through a laugh, or maybe through a smile, or maybe through a breath, or maybe through a movement. Now, that intention to choose, the intention to choose to improve our experience of being
Mm,
alive. What can I do right here, right now, that's going to improve that? Right.
mm. And really, really simple things to do.
Well, in my experience, Claire, the simpler the better.
Absolutely. Yeah. Life's complicated enough as it is without adding more stuff to it. That's beautiful. So, anything else you'd like to share with the viewers and listeners?
Well,
A little gem to a little gem to leave people with, although that last one was pretty perfect anyway.
Well, I love hearing from people. If anybody ever wants to get in touch, please get in touch. I know obviously I do also both in person and online training, but if something in this conversation has kind of touched you, and you want to explore more, then get in touch.
Yeah, so
get in.
where's that lovely Facebook group where people can gather and come to your online sessions? So Joe
Thank you.
does free online laughter sessions you can just join in with from all over the world. So
It's the group is called Laughter. Laughter Yoga with Joe.
okay, beautiful. JOE. Yeah.
On Facebook, and there's a page which is Laughter Yoga for Joy. So
Okay, lovely.
if you Google, if people Google either Laughter Yoga for Joy or Laughter Yoga with Joe, they will come and be able to get in touch and join the tribe and come and experience sessions, and um uh, and hopefully we'll all we'll all keep enjoying our life that little bit more every day.
Exactly. And if in doubt, breathe, smile, laugh, and move.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
I mean, what
Great.
better way to finish than that? So thanks for joining me, Joe. It's been a delight to talk to you. And thanks everybody for watching and listening. And I will share the next interview pretty soon. Bye-bye.
Lovely. Thank you, Claire. Bye bye.